Immigration is a hot-button topic in this country and it's about to really take off. Liberal leader Sussan Ley has again today promised to announce an immigration policy before Christmas.
But more importantly, we're just seeing pressure on infrastructure, on the commute to work, on houses, on hospitals, on schools, on our cities. And we need to address that and bring that back into balance in a way that reassures Australians, as this government has not done, that there actually is a plan.
Look, fantastic. It is great to hear that the Coalition is finally willing to have a discussion about this. You'll recall Peter Dutton took a migration policy to the last election, but it seemed to disappear into the never-never, just like the nuclear policy. But it can't just be about infrastructure and the commute, even though these are, of course, related. Values play a big and important part in the discussion. Now, there has already been talk about a values test as part of the Coalition policy, but it seems the Liberal Party is already tearing itself apart over what it would look like. And Sussan Ley is certainly being very careful to frame immigration cuts in such a way that the left isn't able to frame her as a racist.
We will announce our migration principles before the end of the year. It's not a criticism of any migrant or migrant community. It is a massive failing of governments to build the infrastructure that our communities need, and they're rightly concerned about that.
Now, look, already that's a problem. That is a precursor of, I'm not racist, yes, we're going to come up with a policy, but. And it's that but that dogs this conversation. We know it is not racist to have an adult debate about migration. But it isn't just the left Sussan Ley has to look out for. Moderates in her own party are warning that they won't tolerate what they're calling a Hanson-like policy that puts the blame on migrants for the housing crisis. Now, an unnamed Coalition MP has already told 9 newspapers that the Nationals are obsessed with adopting the same intellectually corrupt views on migration as Pauline Hanson. And at the moment, the Liberals are too obsessed with keeping the Coalition together at the cost of our integrity and, in turn, social cohesion. But meanwhile, Liberal Senator Andrew McLaughlin has condemned the, quote, inflammatory and irresponsible language being deployed. He says the repeated use of the phrase mass migration to describe the rate of immigration was not only technically inaccurate, but extremely unhelpful. Well, what is unhelpful is to actually dodge the topic of mass migration altogether. Migration is not the issue. We are a nation of migrants. Mass migration is the issue. The record number of people Labor has brought into this country and continues to do so is the issue. The types of people Labor has brought in from countries whose values do not align with ours is the issue. The impact that mass migration has had on the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis, the same issues. And I think National Senator Bridget McKenzie summed it up very well today.
It is time for us to have a respectful and honest debate about what that looks like as a country without calling each other racists. I think it's time we need to discriminate on values. If you don't think that a woman should be the Prime Minister in this country, if you want to criminalise homosexuality, if you want to burn our flag, if you don't subscribe to Judeo-Christian values that underpin our institutions, like equality, freedom, equality under law, freedom and compassion, then you should stay where you are.
And look, she's right. I mean, we don't want you here if you don't respect our values. Yet Andrew McLaughlin, who's a South Australian backbencher, told The Guardian, quote, the term mass migration can be used to disguise more dangerous sentiments. Its use in this debate is irresponsible and inflammatory. Every member and senator has a duty to lead public opinion, not to merely reflect the divisive sentiments of the very few. Well, if the term mass migration is the biggest concern facing some moderates, what sort of a debate is there going to be? I mean, there may as well be no debate. Acknowledging that there is a mass migration problem is not inflammatory. It doesn't discriminate against migrants. It's a fact, and the facts speak for themselves. More than 1.2 million migrants have come into this country since Labor was elected. Australia's population will likely reach 28 million by 2027. And at the same time, Labor has failed to deliver on any of its housing targets. Dwelling approvals fell by 6.4% in October. So it's all right for the Albanese government to say, oh, don't worry, we're going to fix the housing shortage. We're going to build 1.2 million homes by 2029. but Labor's more than 70,000 homes short. Treasury Secretary Jenny Wilkinson today revealed only 2 of Australia's state and territories would actually reach their housing commitments, saying, I think there are 2 of the states that we feel more confident, or 2 of the states and territories that we feel more confident will meet their housing commitments based on current projections, but 2029 is still a number of years away. And what's a big driver of this? Mass migration. Commonwealth Bank boss Matt Comyn last month even called on Labor to reduce migration by tens of thousands of people a year to help the nation combat the housing crisis. So spare me this mass migration is mean sentiment. It is nonsense. Now, Sussan Ley will release immigration policy principles and directions, she says, rather than a fixed net migration number before Christmas, possibly to appease the moderates after they struck out during the net zero debate. But I fear that the Liberal Party is destined to do the migration hokey-pokey now, half in, half out. How can you have an immigration policy without a serious fixed target? It needs a figure. Have the courage to do so. Otherwise, why have a policy at all? Immigration is a vote-driving issue. Australians are now more worried about that than climate change. And it's not just a targeted migration program. We deserve to protect our values. And that means we must look at the types of people we're bringing in and where they have come from. But if the term mass migration is the biggest concern, then we have big problems.